right. So this is originally where we were going to start the day, but I thought we probably needed to have the community building discussion first for the articles of incorporation docs. I keep saying articles of incorporations, but actually we're probably going to focus on the bylaws and not the articles. And then Cheese and Potsy were around, so we moved on to branded shows. So some of this stuff is just kind of boilerplate, like the physical office. I don't think we need to talk about that. What I did actually in the articles of incorporation is I started working on a definition of shareable music, and that may be what we want to do here too. And then, this is one thing that I did too, is I changed it to community commons. So maybe we could define shareable music. I don't know what we want to do as far as that. I sort of played around with whether or not this was a name that we wanted to go with instead of Creative Commons. It's sort of like,
sorry, where are you at?
Article 2.
Article
Am I not sharing?
Okay.
Am I not sharing? Oh yeah, I'm not sharing. Sorry.
No.
I turned it off when I don't know when I turned it off, but apparently I turned it off. Maybe it just went off when I had to move it out of the way to see the chat. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that I did that, but the sharing thing hovers over the chat window to turn that on. So Article 1, I don't think we need to talk about. So I played around with potentially changing the name of the org. I don't know. So we already talked about CC Mixter. They changed their CC to collaborative community, sort of get away from Creative Commons HQ being mad at them about using their name. I don't think that's, I don't know how much of this was that and how much of it was just spite because Creative Commons was going back on the deal that they had with CC Mixter. But I think as long as we don't use their logo, we'll be fine. But there is some concern that we're limiting, and this is something we have a whole another discussion about, but I guess it's worth talking about now. So I think these guys have the best license stock. So basically there's concern that there's all these licenses that are not Creative Commons. Some of these I have seen people use this on Dogmazik, but I've never seen it anywhere else. Most of these I've not seen anywhere else. This is people use this for software sometimes. But there's some different licenses and people don't use them for the most part in music. I mean, I guess this is a music specific license. I've never seen anybody actually use it, but it exists. So this is the only one that has any historical clout, which
sorry, which one?
The license Art Libre. It's I wish they didn't do this, but sometimes they translate it and sometimes they don't. So it's artlibre.org, but they translate the name, so you see it as FAL sometimes in English, the free art license. I wish they would just keep it the LAL so people aren't confused. But all these other languages, they've translated it, and it stays. Well, I guess it's not LAL here; it's LWS. So some other languages have the problem too. But in any case, I mean, I know that they're trying to be friendly through that, but I think it's confusing. But in any case, for a while, this was the license in the French speaking world. Creative Commons, and essentially this is older than Creative Commons if I recall correctly, but Creative Commons has also always maintained that this was compatible with CC BY SA. Like ever since they were ever asked, they said, "Oh yeah, they're compatible," but these guys said, "No, they're not." Until CC 4.0 came out, which is the latest, it's the current version, and it's been out for 10 years and over 10 years. And when that came out, the LAO, the free art people, I don't know what to say shorthand, the free art people, they were like, yeah, it's compatible now. So, to me, yeah, people use it, but if it's compatible with the CC license, it kind of doesn't matter. Just take it, and if you want to use it, just use the license, use it as CC BY SA. But there's concern that they're being excluded. So I was just gonna write the docs to talk about shareable music, which I think is not actually that hard to define. And if we want to point to a list of licenses, then we could just point to this. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. So I don't know. So we could do this. We could define Creative Commons differently than being music under the org, and say, like basically it's lowercase Creative Commons, like it's the commons of creative things. It's not specific to an org. Right. We could outright reject, using any of these licenses. I don't personally see a lot of point in there. I don't see what we gain from doing that, other than, I guess, a little bit of clarity. But again, I kind of view it as a non-issue. But maybe it is an issue in the French-speaking world. Certainly people do use other licenses on Dogmazique because they make them available. So I guess if we wanted to have full compatibility with the Dogmazique license, then we would need to adopt their licensing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We say shareable music, and that's what I guess I think of. But to me, that doesn't imply like remixable.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that not all Creative Commons licenses are remixable. So,
Yeah. Is everything shareable?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so Music Monument, we played around with the whole remix thing, because at the time that we started, I think free culture was sort of at its zenith. And there seemed to be this like big gulf between free culture and what Creative Commons was doing, at its the broadest circle on the Venn diagram. And so we sort of targeted the middle, and we said no ND licenses. Not that we wouldn't talk to you if you had some ND stuff, but we played a track at the end of the shows, and we said we're not if you have some tracks that are no derivatives, we're not going to play those tracks. We're only going to play something that's under a remixable license. So that is a way that we could go, but then people don't really like, people see remix. Some people see remix as something very specific, where like a cover is not a remix in their view. So it's like trying to find a word that like fits everything, is difficult. And the thing about this document is like, it's broad. Like it's defining what the organization can do at its largest scope. But I think that in practice, the organization will probably focus on things that are remixable, at least to some extent. And I would like it if we had somebody step up and sort of be like the free culture liaison, like, whatever that ends up being, maybe some free culture specific content. I think that would be good for folks that to understand that, like, you are limiting yourself if you're using a -NC license. And some people understand, specifically what they're doing with the -NC, but I think a lot of people don't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. The tough part, like the people who, I don't know,
Well,
want to know it, and then the other people who get, freaked out by it. It's the other people who look at it and say, "Oh, well, this is shareable music. I don't care. Fine." It's just so many different, and then there's different interests of like why you would be part of it, and I'm just like, fucking, I don't know.
Yeah. Of course, this points back to the articles of incorporation. Again, this is just like the legal doc. Doesn't necessarily have to be like, a definition that we use publicly. I mean, bylaws will be public, but like on the website, we don't. It's not the working definition we have to use.
So this is saying what? So this is the definition of shareable music.
Yeah, it points to another document, but we're going to refer to this at other places in this document. So
okay.
I mean, I had, like I said, played around with the with the name. I don't know.
Commons music.
Yeah. So, and then people aren't turned away by the name. I'm not sure that's a big deal. I just sort of playing around with it.
No, I agree. It's just.
So basically, like these places where, I say community commons, we just changed this to shareable music. And I think that,
but then, like you're saying, that argues for changing the name of the group.
Well, no, it doesn't. I mean, like we can be whatever you want to be public. Right. I mean, like our legal name for Black Sonic is Black Global. It's not Black Sonic. I mean, you can brand things whatever you want. As long as what you're doing falls within what you've said, and certainly Creative Commons music does fall within shareable music. So I don't think we have a problem there.
Yeah, no, I don't think we have a problem. I just think it's, I don't know, less clear, I guess. Yeah. But I like it, and so I don't know. I wouldn't want to like say Friends of Shareable Music. Well, maybe.
Well, so Community Commons works because we already have the website. So,
yeah.
I mean, the legal name doesn't necessarily need to be, again, what we are publicly. I think that probably makes sense. But in this case, if we were going to be, I mean, and this is, I guess something that we'll talk about when we talk about like IRS filing and stuff. But
okay, so what if it was just kind of spitballing? What if it was community music? And then what if we define community music as shareable music and incorporating Creative Commons? And I don't know. This could go on forever. I know. I just.
Jason, Kevin, you guys have any thoughts?
Hey, first off, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My centering within this whole universe since I've been within it has mainly been within a Creative Commons context. So honestly, I still feel like I'm somebody in a really vast ocean that's still getting my feet wet in all of this. So I'm really one of those people who is nestling themselves within Creative Commons on the music side of things and still getting a rudimentary understanding of the licenses and how they function. I did peek my head in to one of the sessions earlier as it pertained to the handouts.
Yeah.
And was looking at those handouts, particularly interested in recognizing the licenses in terms of which ones are the least open and which ones are the most open.
Yeah.
You know, even outside of the Creative Commons arena, even things that are all rights reserved are handled differently depending upon where you are in the world. So the moment that you open things up towards a global understanding of the shareable licensing side of things, I think it seems to me that there are places outside of the States that are engaging in other ways to share music with different licenses that may not necessarily be the immediate go-tos over here, stateside. I think we've, you know, with the, you know, the website itself, Friends of CC Music, I don't necessarily think that naming it that, having that as a domain, having that be what's front facing to those just approaching the site, I don't necessarily think that name is something that necessarily shoos aside any other shareable license device that isn't explicitly Creative Commons. That's a discussion that can be talked about, maybe within the resources sections of the site. I think giving people an entryway in just through Creative Commons itself might be a good landing point. And then if people want to branch out, that can always be offered through other areas of the site, especially if we're looking to centralize things where the website is concerned.
How do they call that thing? Slides. I was going to bring up the doc. Doesn't look like PowerPoint can read it. So I don't know what the final version is here, because Rhino worked on a few different versions. I don't know what the difference between 2 and 3 is there. But anyway, this is the handout that he's talking about for anybody who hasn't seen it. Close some of this stuff. Can always open it back up if I need to. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess you know, we need to have something in here. I mean, we can put Creative Commons, but we're going to have a definition somewhere that includes other licenses if we want to include other licenses, I think. You know, that said, there is also Article 3.2 to foster, promote, and increase access to public interest content available to general public and promote the general right to use, change, and distribute cultural works, which would theoretically include any license that allows you to, you know, do that kind of stuff. I mean, you know, I guess, you know, it's really the distribute. The distribute is the same as the share in this case. You know, I mean, you could use distributable music. You know, it's maybe a little tied up with, you know, like what people think is a distributor for record labels. But I mean, if that's a word, I mean, that's, you know, like a word out of the copyright statute. So, you know, that would be one way to do it. I mean, maybe these purposes don't need any work, but I know, you know, like there was some pushback against Creative Commons, so I think it'd be good to be explicit at some point about other, you know, that. So we can make the definition whatever we want. So
yeah. Right. I think that, yeah. I think CC Music has a good, I don't know, hashtag brand is all,
sure,
it's all work.
This is just, this doesn't say anything about how we brand things. This is just the definition of what the organization can do.
Yeah. It's all fine. It's good.
So, I mean, we can do Creative Commons music, but here, you know, but, you know, again, some people have raised that as, you know, potentially limiting. So. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we're not a public domain. I mean, part of the problem with saying Creative Commons is, you know, then like you're not really talking about like public domain day and stuff like that. So, you know, I think even if you ignore other licenses, it does make some sense to, you know, to talk about the public domain. You know, we don't talk about the public domain explicitly, but, you know, we can define shareable music in the articles to include that. But, you know, if we want to, we can put like another purpose in here. You know, if we want to explicitly talk, you know, we could talk about Creative Commons and public domain explicitly if we want. I mean, I think this is the piece. These purposes are really the piece that we want to make sure we get right. The definition is kind of whatever. I mean, we can, you know, I don't think that's a big deal.
I don't know. I feel like it could be a big deal, but it doesn't have to be a big deal. Like,
well, I mean, I think I guess why do you think the definition?
Let me propose another framing of things. So I've just thrown this out. If I know we do different domain name and all that. If we changed it to Friends of Community Music,
Yeah. Well, because you know we'd lose a C. But
yeah, and then we did Article 2 definition of community music, and we
yeah,
basically did all the same thing except we replaced shareable music with community music, and then we just did everything still, hashtag is still CC Music and Creative Commons and all that. But we just made sure that in our purposes we said, I don't know, almost something like, mostly we include, Creative Commons music. We also include public domain, and we are open to, to the idea of people, of promoting music that people are granted in, directly granted the license, to license to share kind of stuff, just to kind of make it bigger. And to me, the idea of using the term community music is, again, it kind of goes back to the first thing we talked about, which is this thing of, is it about the remix culture? Is it about that? Or is it about, I don't know, the idea of music that is independent and human instead of corporate and, I don't know, less about human sharing with other humans and more about making fucking money.
yeah,
But like, again, that's how I come into it. And to me, there is so much, that's obviously about CC music and about remix culture. That's, that the people who are invested in they are the most invested in it. And I just I don't think still being focused around CC music really turns anybody off specifically. I don't know.
well, yeah. I mean,
I just don't know that it brings as many people in as another way of talking about things could. But maybe I don't know that I'm right. I don't know.
but I
I
guess
don't
the
have
thing
any
here,
evidence that I'm right.
the only people that are ever going to see this are like a
Yeah,
judge when somebody
sure.
in the organization sues the organization because they haven't been following the
Right.
purposes.
And so that's
That
all that's fine for all that. That's why I'm saying that what we call the org is is the only thing that I don't know.
yeah.
I
Well,
wonder about, because
okay.
that is something people are going to see all the time.
Sure. Okay.
But nobody has any definite, like when I say community music, nobody knows what that means. And so people know what CC music is,
Yeah.
and people have a frame of what that means. And when people think of CC music, they don't think of it in the way that you go into the details of. I think they mostly do think of, public domain. They almost think of it as if somebody said, hey, you can play my music. They kind of think of that as Creative Commons, although that's
Yeah.
not at all
Right.
Creative Commons. So yeah, I don't know that it turns anybody off, but
Well, I mean, it definitely did.
yeah,
That's the whole reason why that I changed the definition. I mean, I guess the thing is that, what if Creative Commons as an organization goes away for some reason?
okay,
You know, it, you can run the whole like don't depend on other organizations things, forever, and then you
yeah.
end up living in the jungle and
I talk to many
eating fish.
libertarians
But
all about that. Yep. Okay.
what was that?
I talk to many libertarians all the time about this
Yeah.
shit. Yeah.
But so I'm sort of saying, hey, let's use the Dogmazique list of licenses.
Right.
In one hand, and I'm saying don't sort of like tie to Creative Commons the org in another way.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess this is like a document that we can just like use. Like we're not really tying ourselves to Dogmazique, I guess, unless Dogmazique decides they want to like delete a bunch of stuff from here or whatever. Right. I mean, I think that the thing I guess that makes me more like I feel like leaning on Dogmazique might make a little more sense than CCHQ, is because Dogmazique is a music organization, so like their goals are always going to be more aligned with us. Like Creative Commons has shown, over the last decade that they're, antagonistic to music. They're hostile. They're a hostile organization. Now that may not always be the case, but that's definitely been the case for the past decade. So I think that
we're displacing both of these, right? Or replacing, or I mean, like we're kind of trying to embrace, but I don't know, fucking Microsoft shit. Extent we're trying to both embrace Creative Commons, but extend it in the sense of, I mean, we're focusing on music, not just Creative Commons in general, right. But we're also trying to be bigger than Creative Commons. And
well, I mean, the only way in which we're being bigger than in Creative Commons is this small list. And
right.
There's frankly just not a lot of stuff out there, but the French are very, very tied to this license, and if we don't include them, they're gonna go flip over cars and burn shit down. And
so they have all those licenses, but really the number one is the top one is the one that they're.
This is the only license. This is it. This is the license. All this other stuff is just nobody uses them. I mean, that's not literally true. You can find C reaction stuff on Dogmazique, like.
So what does Indonesia think of this? Like,
as far, Indonesia's all over Bandcamp, and they're doing their thing, but some of these people.
Are we only caring about the French? Why do we care so much about the French?
Because they're the ones who are yelling. That's why we care about them.
Okay.
I mean, Dogmazique is good stuff, like they've been around forever, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, there's no reason to exclude Dogmazique. I mean, we should point people to Dogmazique, sure. And I guess, that's part of the thing too, is that, like, if we're going to say, yeah, Dogmazique is this cool organization, they got a lot of music, but then you go there and you find all these things that aren't Creative Commons, people are going to be like, well, can I use this? You know, like, what is this stuff? So,
and Dogmazique is like a Jamendo, or?
Yeah. So, you can see, so there's Libre Music, and they're a volunteer organization. And then they run Dogmazique. So, they've been around since 2004. So, there's all this. So Dogmazique was around for 10 years while the free art people were saying the Creative Commons license is not compatible. So there's all this like back catalog of stuff under the licenses. And I think people are still using those licenses because of that. And then, I don't know about all these new ones. Somewhere I feel like they changed things on me recently, because maybe it's on here's the license. Okay, so this one's BYNC and D. I don't know why it always goes back there, but so this one's the CC0.
Domain public.
Yeah. So these are just the latest releases. So,
got it.
Where are the rest of organizations?
Ladder.
I mean, you can see that, like, they're publishing their content under CC BYSA. They're not anti-Creative Commons. They're just opening it up to other people.
Right.
And the people that,
which I'm supportive of. That's
the people that were saying, hey, there's all these other licenses. I don't think they were necessarily anti-Creative Commons either. They're just saying, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you're leaving out. What the hell is, like, maybe you have to log in to see the rest of the. Okay, browse music. Okay, so you have to pick a way. So we have our licenses on here. Now you got to click in to see the license. So this one doesn't have, maybe because it's on the album list.
Kevin
Yeah,
says,
so it's on.
I have friends who say their music is copyright free. So that's what people search for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not one that they've got on here.
No,
but...
I mean it's yeah, right. I mean it's not a real thing, but it is maybe how people think, and that's
right.
important.
I wish I had like some advanced search. Let's see if I can find stuff by C reaction.
Open music?
So I guess the sidebar is where all this stuff is.
Friends of Community Music.
Yeah. So I mean, lots of Creative Commons stuff. All right, let's. We can always come back to this. We got some other stuff we need to talk about in the docs. So, well, I mean, I guess one thing, maybe this is a good time to talk about this. I mean, we can talk about this in the IRS stuff later too, perhaps. But I mean, we need to sort of figure out, like, do we want to go ahead and file, or we talked about having another one of these sessions Cinco de Mayo weekend, but we could always do something sooner too if we wanted to have INWRG sooner than that. If we don't think we're quite ready to file, then we can always just talk about some other stuff if we think that
what do we lose if we don't, or what do we get if we do? We can still talk about ourselves kind of as an organization. I mean, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to file anywhere to be an organization, but for tax purposes, if you're going to be collecting money, it's good to be have if you need to get like a bank account as an org, like there's all sorts of stuff that you can do as an official organization that
Money Lebowski.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, if we think there's like another thing that's more important to talk about, like if we want to talk about Net Label Day and plans for that, we could just do that. And then, you guys have all seen what this document looks like and some of the big picture items that we need to resolve before we file. But people can, we can take that and think about that if we think we're done. What do you think? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that any of this is something we'd be too concerned about. Just we'd be more concerned about, can we do it? What would be cost-wise, and what do we get out of it? What do we, and what would we be, I don't know, legally, tying ourselves to for doing it? Or
yeah, I mean, I think the purposes are pretty broad. I don't think there's really any problem with what they've got now. The director stuff, is something that we're gonna have to talk about.
right.
Like
Sure.
quorum of directors and stuff like that. There's a lot
filing
of stuff.
Reports and stuff.
There's lots of things to how do we amend the bylaws, things like that. So there's lots of things to like go through. So we're not going to get through them all in the next 15 minutes, I don't think. So so I mean, we could keep going. We could do we want to talk about Net Label Day, or If you want to, we can pick one from the additional topics here.
Is Omar at all said he would be here or no?
I don't know. I know when I talked to Omar in December, he had a lot of stuff going on, like family wise. So, yeah, I don't know. You could ping him on Mastodon if you want. You know, the one of the things with Net Label Day was Stovall was saying that it's just at a bad time for Europe. So, maybe that's something we could come back to and talk about later. You know, that's another reason, like for the global organizations, like, you know, if they wanted to do something in Europe on a different day, then that would be something they could figure out together. We have talked about the other licenses a bit. We could talk about that more if we thought that was useful.
I don't think so. I don't know enough. I mean, I guess that's the first group, like the CC Mixter people. Do they have the someone who's making videos? Do they have any issues with the current licenses, or I don't know?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I don't know why I don't think we need to talk about it. I guess I just don't know
about other licenses. Yeah. Well, do we want to talk about the CC 25th?
I defer to people who have been here more than 3 years.
I mean, we could just take a more extended break and then come back in 18 minutes and talk about stakeholder orgs. I don't know if anybody's planning on, you know, showing up specifically for that one, but, you know, I could go get some lunch in the 18 minutes if we're kind of tapped out on the bylaws. Maybe people could read through the rest of the bylaws in the break and
stakeholder organizations. What exactly would that entail between musicians, podcasters, fans, and
well, let's save that one because it's on the schedule, so people might be showing up to talk about that.
So
let's talk about that at 11. That's the one that's coming up next. So either we should pick one of these additional topics here to talk about, or we should just take, you know, instead of a 5-minute break, take a 17-minute break.
Might be best to take an extended break at this point.
All right. We will
Sounds good.
cut that, and then